Hello, I'm John. I don't know if any of you have ever thought about what your fantasy dinner party guest list would look like. If you could choose 5 people to come and have dinner, who would you have? I'm guessing that on a lot of people's lists, believers and non-believers, Jesus might feature. And I was thinking, if he came, what would be my first question? You know, if I had Jesus, Saviour of the world, sitting at my dinner table, what would I ask him? But more interestingly, what would he respond? And if we look in the Bible, quite often when Jesus is asked a question, he responds with another question. A really famous one, I think, is, are you the King of the Jews? And he says, do you think I'm the King of the Jews? And he does that quite a bit in a lot of the Gospels. And I wonder why. I sort of think if I was at a dinner party and he was there and I was asking him that and he was just asking me another question in response, I'd find that a bit frustrating, but he does that a lot. And I wondered why. A few weeks ago, I was sitting at a lunch party. Jesus wasn't there. Oh, I'm sure he was, but not actually at the table. And I was sitting opposite a teacher. And we were talking about mindfulness, really, and how children can be open to seeing things in different ways. And they were talking about siblings, and he teaches sort of 9-year-olds, and he'd prepared this lesson about siblings, and he told the teaching assistant that he wanted to sort of talk a bit about his own upbringing, his background, and he brought in a photo which he put up on the wall on the projector screen of him and his brother, who was the same age as him, on their first day together at school in probably, you know, the mid-1960s. But the interesting thing about this photo is that his brother had been adopted, and his brother was a boy from Jamaica, and he was a very white middle-class kid, and they lived in Wales, so it was probably quite unusual for these two brothers to be there, one black and one white. And so he put the photo up and said, "Oh look, this is me and my brother when we were kids." And the kid said, "Oh, so you know, look at your satchel. You know, what's that thing around your neck?" And he said, "That's where we used to keep our books." And you know, "What's that thing on your head?" And he said, "Well, that was a straw boat we used to wear there." And one of the other kids put their hands up and said, "Which one's you?" And the teacher went, "Well, one on the left." Anyway, the lesson was really good. And afterwards the children had gone out to play and he was clearing up with the teaching assistant and said to the teaching assistant, "What a stupid question. Well, wasn't that a stupid boy? Which one's you? One little black kid, one little white kid." And the teaching assistant said, "That child only sees, the child that asked the question only saw 2 children. They didn't see a black child and a white child. They just saw 2 children. And actually it was him who had seen the black child and the white child, but just because he had seen it like that doesn't mean that the children saw it like that." And the teaching assistant said, "Who's the stupid one? Who's the silly one?" It was an interesting story, but it did make me think about this thing about Jesus keep answering questions with other questions. And I think maybe sometimes what we really are looking for, what we're really searching for, is more in the question that we ask than in any possible answer that there may be. And sometimes when we're reading scriptures, when we're thinking about God, when we're listening for God's voice and we're asking God a question, maybe asking him that question is actually part of God's purpose for us.